Bruised, broken, and sold like cattle under the scorching Nevada sun, Clara Brennan was abandoned by all, until one stranger stepped forward to buy her freedom and change her destiny forever. Under the relentless Nevada sun of September 1867, the small mining town of Calico Junction simmered with heat and tension. At the center of the dusty town square stood Clara Brennan, bruised and half-naked, trembling atop a weathered wooden auction block. Once a refined woman from Boston, she had been reduced to damaged goods in the eyes of the rough miners and ranchers surrounding her. Her torn dress barely covered her thin, battered arms, and her eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and fading hope. The crowd jeered and whispered, their harsh voices echoing across the sun-baked earth. To them, Clara was no more than property to be bought and sold, a burden left behind by her father's debts and tragic death. The air was thick with dust, the sharp scent of livestock, and the metallic tang of sweat. Horses stamped nervously, stagecoaches rattled past, and the distant clang of the church bell marked the passage of time in this unforgiving frontier. Clara's heart pounded wildly as whispers circled, secrets, debts, broken promises, all binding her to this place. She clung to memories of a gentler past, of her father's kind face before the fatal accident, and the desperate gamble that led her here. Among the hostile crowd, one figure stood apart, a tall, weathered stranger with calloused hands and steady gray eyes that had seen hardship and loss. His gaze lingered on Clara, calm and deliberate, as if he saw beneath the surface to something the others couldn't. Then, breaking the murmurs, his voice rang out clearly, "I'll pay the full debt." The crowd fell silent. Heads turned, whispers faded. Why would this stranger risk everything on a woman all others had abandoned? What hope flickered in his eyes and in hers? If you love tales of grit, redemption, and love that lasts, subscribe to Dust and Destiny now and ride with us to the very end. The auctioneer's gavel pounded sharply, echoing through the heated air of Calico Junction. The crowd's restless murmurs rose as two men stepped into a bitter contest over Clara Brennan's fate. Jeremiah Slade, the notorious saloon owner with a predatory grin and a gold tooth gleaming in the sunlight, raised his voice, making his bids loud and aggressive. His intent was clear. He saw Clara not as a person, but as a prize to be claimed for his own dark purposes. Opposite him stood Ezra McKinnon, a rugged rancher with a scar running along his jawline and eyes as steady as the Nevada mountains. His voice was quiet but unwavering as he entered the bidding. Unlike Slade, Ezra's offers carried no menace, only determination and a hint of compassion. The tension thickened with every rise in the bid. When Ezra finally offered $300, enough to cover every cent of Clara's debt, a hush fell over the crowd. $300 in Calico Junction was a small fortune, money that could buy a horse, feed for cattle, or supplies to last a harsh winter. Clara's heart beat wildly as she met Ezra's gaze, seeing no hunger for possession in his eyes, only respect and a chance for dignity. Her hands trembled as she reached out and accepted his offer, knowing this choice would change her life forever. Ezra promised her more than freedom from debt. He offered work, a place on his small ranch 5 miles from town, and fair wages. But Clara's mind raced with questions. Was this rescue genuine, or simply another trap disguised as kindness? The fear of the unknown wrestled with the flicker of hope in her chest. Ezra's voice cut through her doubts, steady and reassuring. "You're not my property. You can leave anytime you want. But if you stay, you'll be treated like family." Clara's whisper was barely audible, yet heavy with longing. "When was the last time someone asked me what I wanted?" In that moment, Clara stepped off the auction block, embracing the uncertainty ahead with a courage she hadn't known she still possessed. The road before her was uncharted, but for the first time, she walked it by her own choice. The ride from Calico Junction to Ezra McKinnon's ranch stretched far beyond the miles that lay between town and wilderness. It was a journey through memories, both sharp and faded, that weighed heavily on Clara Brennan's heart. As Daisy, Ezra's steady mare, picked her way along the narrow mountain trail, the harsh desert landscape softened into rolling hills, blanketed by thick pine forests. The sweet, resinous scent of pine needles mingled with the crisp, cool air, while a nearby creek babbled softly, its clear waters a balm to Clara's parched spirit. Clara sat quietly, her hands clutching the worn leather reins, eyes tracing the shadows cast by the towering trees. The wilderness around her was wild and untamed, yet somehow honest, far different from the gilded cages of Boston she had known. Yet even here, surrounded by fresh air and open skies, Clara's mind was captive to the ghosts of her past. Her thoughts drifted back to a life wrapped in silks and chandeliers, where the glow of gas lamps illuminated grand music halls and ballroom dances. She remembered the delicate rustle of her silk gowns, the sharp scent of fresh roses in velvet-lined rooms, and the elegant piano melodies she once coaxed from polished keys, music that had moved audiences to tears and joy alike. But beneath the elegance lay secrets, shadows cast long and deep. Names she had worn like fragile masks: Rebecca Morrison, Elizabeth Hayes, each a desperate attempt to hide from a truth that clawed at her soul. The betrayal that had shattered her life played over again in her mind. Charles Whitman, the man she had once trusted, a son of Boston's wealthiest banker, had used his charm to deceive not only the city, but Clara herself. He had stolen from the bank, from honest families who placed their faith in the Whitman name, and when Clara threatened to expose his crimes, he turned the full weight of the law against her. The whispers that followed her across towns and states had been merciless, branding her a thief and a liar. The promise of a fresh start had drawn her westward with her father, but that dream was crushed when a wagon accident took his life, leaving her alone with crushing debts and a name stained by scandal. The weight of those losses settled heavy on her chest, the sting of betrayal fresh despite the miles she had traveled. Beside her, Ezra McKinnon rode in silence, his face worn by years of hard work and hardship, yet softened by the fading light of dusk. Without pressing her, he shared pieces of his own past, a tale marked by loss and endurance. He spoke quietly of the fever that had claimed his wife and daughter 3 years earlier, of the loneliness that followed, and of his determination to keep their memory alive through the land he worked. His voice was steady, bearing the kind of sorrow that spoke not of weakness, but of resilience. In the quiet spaces between his words, Clara sensed the depth of his grief and the strength it had forged within him. Here was a man shaped by loss, yet unbroken, a reflection of the fight stirring in her own heart. Their shared silences grew heavier with meaning. A glance exchanged held more than words could convey, a recognition of pain, a shared understanding of survival. A brief touch on the reins as they navigated a rocky patch was a silent promise. They would not face this new life alone. At times, Clara found herself stealing furtive looks at Ezra's scarred jawline, wondering about the stories etched into his skin. She saw the quiet strength in his eyes, a calm resolve that steadied her when fear threatened to overwhelm. Slowly, the walls she had built began to crumble, replaced by a fragile hope born of connection. The trail wound higher into the mountains, the sky above turning a deep indigo studded with stars. The air grew cooler, scented with pine and earth, and the distant howl of coyotes echoed softly through the valley. For the first time in months, Clara felt a tentative peace settle within her. A fleeting thought crossed her mind, a whisper carried on the wind that perhaps their paths had crossed once before. A fleeting familiarity in Ezra's gaze, a sensation as elusive as the fading desert sun. It was a mystery she dared not name, but one that deepened the growing bond between them. As they crested a ridge, the ranch came into view, a humble log cabin nestled in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, carrying the scent of burning wood and home. Cattle grazed quietly in the fenced pasture, their low murmurs blending with the gentle rush of the nearby creek. Ezra dismounted and offered Clara his hand, steady and sure. She took it, feeling the rough calluses beneath her fingers, a tangible symbol of the life he had built and the work that awaited her. "Here we are," he said softly. 5 miles from town. It's not much, but it's honest work and there's room for you." Clara's heart fluttered with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. This place, wild and untamed, felt both foreign and strangely comforting. a blank page on which she could begin to write a new story. Together they walked toward the cabin, the crunch of their boots on the pine needles the only sound in the cool mountain air. Ezra shared stories of the land, the struggles of ranch life, and the memories of his lost family. Clara listened, grateful for the quiet companionship, the steady presence beside her. That night, as Clara settled into the small room once belonging to Ezra's daughter, she ran her fingers over the worn quilt and the shelves lined with books. Poetry, novels, stories of hope and heartache, all waiting to be rediscovered. For the first time in a long while, Clara allowed herself to believe in the possibility of healing. In the vast, wild expanse of the Nevada mountains, two broken souls found a fragile beginning, bound not by past shadows, but by the quiet promise of new bonds and renewed strength. Under the quiet glow of the cabin's hearth, the firelight flickered softly against the worn wooden walls, casting long shadows that seemed to breathe with the weight of unspoken truths. Clara sat close to the warmth, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a worn shawl around her shoulders. The silence between her and Ezra McKinnon was thick, filled with the unsaid stories that hung heavy in the air. Tonight, she knew, the past could no longer be hidden beneath layers of fear and shame. Taking a deep breath, Clara began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper, fragile yet resolute. "My real name is Clara Brennan," she said, eyes fixed on the dancing flames. "But there's more to my story. Before I came west, before I was sold at that auction, I lived another life, a life that ended in betrayal." Ezra's gaze never wavered, steady and kind, inviting her to continue without fear. "I was accused," Clara confessed, swallowing hard as memories flooded her mind. "Falsely accused of embezzlement, a crime I did not commit. The man behind it, Charles Whitman, the very man I trusted." Her voice faltered, the pain of betrayal sharp and raw. "He stole from the bank, from honest people. When I found out, I threatened to expose him. Instead, he turned the law against me. I lost everything, my name, my home, my future." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she looked up, searching Ezra's face for judgment but finding only understanding. He reached out, gently brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "Clara," he said softly, "you're not your worst day. You're the courage it takes to stand back up after it." Those words wrapped around her like a shield, dissolving some of the fear that had shackled her heart for so long. For the first time, Clara felt seen, not as a shadow of her past mistakes or false accusations, but as a woman of strength and resilience. The nights that followed were filled with quiet moments of peace. Clara found refuge in the room upstairs, the one once belonging to Ezra's daughter. The shelves lined with books became her sanctuary, the poetry and stories whispering hope and renewal. She read aloud, letting the words fill the space with light and promise. Ezra, too, shared parts of himself. He spoke of the fever that took his wife and child, of the loneliness that shaped him, and of the determination to rebuild not just his ranch, but the broken pieces of his heart. In those exchanges, their pain mingled, weaving a bond stronger than any words could describe. Together, they began to heal. The past did not vanish. It left its scars, but it no longer held power to define them. Instead, those scars became marks of survival, symbols of the courage to embrace a future forged from hope. One evening, standing side by side on the porch with the vast Nevada sky stretching above, Clara asked, "Do you believe we can truly leave the past behind?" Ezra looked at her, eyes filled with hard-earned wisdom. "The past shapes us," he said, "but it doesn't have to chain us. It's what we choose to carry forward that matters." Clara smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in months. In Ezra's steady presence, she found not only acceptance but the strength to choose freedom for herself and for the life they would build together. The soft morning light filtered through the tall pine trees, casting a gentle glow across the McKinnon ranch. Clara stood at the edge of the vegetable garden, feeling the cool earth between her fingers as she dug small holes for new seeds. The scent of fresh soil mingled with the crisp mountain air, a quiet reminder that life, though fragile, continued to grow even after hardship. For the first time since arriving at the ranch, Clara felt a sense of ownership, not just of the land she tended, but of her own future. The timid woman who once trembled on the auction block was giving way to someone stronger, someone ready to meet the challenges of frontier life head-on. Ezra watched from the porch, a quiet smile playing on his weathered face. He saw the transformation unfolding before him. The way Clara's shoulders squared with resolve, the spark of determination igniting in her eyes. She was no longer a victim of her past, but a woman claiming her place in the world. Upstairs, Clara's footsteps echoed softly as she entered the room that had belonged to Ezra's daughter. The space was small but filled with meaning. Books lined the shelves, their worn leather spines a testament to a love for stories and knowledge. A quilt, carefully stitched with delicate patterns, covered the bed, its faded colors still vibrant with memories. Clara ran her fingers over a volume of poetry by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, the pages yellowed but the words as powerful as ever. She read aloud softly, letting the verses wash over her. "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." Those words became a mantra for Clara, a symbol of healing and resilience. She placed the book gently back on the shelf, feeling a deep connection to the past while embracing the possibility of renewal. Each day brought new trials, repairing fences battered by storms, tending to stubborn cattle, learning the rhythms of ranch life. Clara faced them not with fear, but with a growing confidence, supported by Ezra's steady presence and the quiet strength she found within herself. She kept close to her heart the small symbols that reminded her of hope, the poetry that inspired her, the untouched room that held memories of love lost, and the trust Ezra had placed in her. These were not just objects, but talismans of a future she was determined to build. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, Clara stood on the porch, watching the golden light spill across the valley. Ezra joined her, handing her a simple wooden carving, a rough-hewn eagle, wings outstretched. "It's a symbol of freedom," he said, "of rising above what holds you down." Clara clasped the carving, feeling its weight, both in her hand and in her heart. It was more than a gift. It was a promise, to herself and to Ezra, that she would soar beyond the shadows of her past. Together they faced the wild frontier, not as broken souls, but as partners bound by courage, healing, and the quiet power of new beginnings. Under the shadowed skies of a late autumn evening, the McKinnon Ranch lay cloaked in a chilling stillness, broken only by the low murmur of cattle and the rustling of dry leaves swept by a cold wind. Clara stood at the kitchen window, her hands trembling slightly as she watched the horizon where dark figures approached on horseback. The unease in her chest tightened like a noose. The past she had hoped to escape was galloping back toward her, and this time it carried guns and threats. Jeremiah Slade, with his infamous gold tooth gleaming wickedly in the dimming light, led a small band of men who bore the sinister semblance of lawmen. But their badges were cheap fakes, their intentions far from justice. They rode under the guise of federal marshals, determined to drag Clara back east, to the prison and ruin that awaited her if she fell into their hands. Slade's face was a mask of cruel satisfaction. He relished the chance to reclaim what he believed was his, whether by law or by violence. Inside the cabin, Ezra's jaw tightened as he heard the distant rumble of horses. He moved with quiet urgency, loading rifles and checking ammunition with a practiced hand. He didn't flinch at the thought of confrontation. Years of battling the unforgiving land had forged a resolve as hard as the rocky soil beneath their feet. But this was different. This fight wasn't just for survival. It was for Clara's freedom, for the dignity that Slade sought to steal once more. Clara met Ezra's eyes, the fear in her gaze tempered by a growing fire. "They're coming for me," she whispered. "But I'm not that frightened girl anymore." "No," Ezra said, his voice steady. "You're a woman who's fought too hard to be taken down now." The men prepared a plan quickly. Ezra knew the ranch like the back of his hand. The hidden hollows, the thick groves of pine that could conceal them, the narrow trails perfect for ambush. They would not surrender quietly. As the riders thundered closer, Ezra positioned himself behind the overturned wagon in the barnyard, rifle poised. Clara stood beside him, clutching a worn hunting rifle she had never fired before, but now held with a determination that surprised even herself. Dr. Hayes, a steadfast ally who had come to aid them, took cover nearby, his eyes sharp beneath a weathered hat. The first shots cracked through the chilly air like thunder. Horses reared, screams and curses pierced the night, and the once quiet valley erupted into chaos. Ezra's rifle barked again and again, each shot aimed to disarm, to protect. Clara's hands shook at first, but with each breath and heartbeat her aim steadied. She was no longer a woman defined by fear, but by courage born from the struggle to survive. Jeremiah Slade's men faltered under the unexpected resistance. Their confident smirks faded as they realized this was no easy prey. The young rider, barely old enough to shave, glanced nervously at his comrades, his resolve faltering. Another shot shattered a plank of the barn wall, sending splinters flying, and for a moment, the tide seemed to shift. Ezra called out, voice booming over the gunfire. "Show your papers, prove you're lawmen, or leave this place." The lead rider wheeled his horse defiantly, flashing a silver badge that glittered in the moonlight. Too shiny, too perfect to be real. "We're federal marshals. Stand down or face the consequences." But the hesitation in their eyes betrayed the lie. They lacked the authority, the confidence, and the righteousness that came with true lawmen. Ezra and Dr. Hayes pressed their advantage, using the terrain and surprise to keep the attackers at bay. Amid the cacophony, Clara found strength she never knew she had. Her shots rang true, protecting the man who had shown her kindness when no one else would. The dance of gunfire and strategy stretched on, a high-stakes game where one mistake meant death or capture. Then, amidst the tension, a crucial crack appeared. One of Slade's men, the youngest rider, muttered under his breath, "This ain't worth dying for." Without waiting for orders, he spurred his horse and fled into the dark woods. That act of desertion tipped the balance. Fear and doubt spread like wildfire among the attackers. Slade's face twisted in rage, but even he knew when the fight was lost. Ezra's voice cut through the night once more. "Drop your weapons! Tell us who sent you or face real justice!" Cornered and exposed, the remaining men hesitated, their resolve crumbling. Clara's steady rifle pointed unwaveringly, her eyes blazing with the fierce will to protect her new life. One by one, the men surrendered, the facade of fake marshals shattered. Ezra stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "You're under arrest for impersonating law enforcement and conspiracy. The real law will deal with you." The battle ended as swiftly as it had begun. Silence settled over the valley once more, broken only by the labored breaths of those who had fought and the distant howl of a lone coyote. Clara sank to the ground, exhaustion mingling with relief. Ezra knelt beside her, offering a steady hand and a quiet smile. "You did well," he said. "Not many would stand and fight." For the first time in what felt like forever, Clara allowed herself a smile, not just of survival, but of victory. The fight had tested her in ways she never imagined, but it had also forged her into someone stronger. Together, beneath the wide expanse of Nevada's star-studded sky, Clara and Ezra faced the future, scarred but unbroken, bound by a shared courage that no enemy could extinguish. The crisp morning air settled softly over the McKinnon Ranch as dawn broke, painting the sky in gentle hues of pink and gold. After the fierce battle of the previous night, a quiet calm had returned, not just to the land, but to Clara Brennan's heart. The shadows of fear and uncertainty that had haunted her were beginning to fade, replaced by a fragile but growing sense of hope. News had traveled swiftly through Calico Junction and beyond. The men who came for Clara were imposters, hired guns masquerading as lawmen, their plot exposed by Ezra's quick thinking and the courage of those who stood with Clara. But that was only the beginning of the fight for justice. Evidence had surfaced, documents and testimonies uncovered by a determined ally that proved Clara's innocence. The embezzlement charges that had once shackled her name were shown to be fabrications. The true thief exposed as Charles Whitman, the man who had betrayed her so deeply. The truth could no longer be hidden behind lies and deceit. The most unexpected moment came when a visitor arrived at the ranch, a woman whose presence stirred the very air with tension and unspoken emotion. Margaret Whitman, Charles's mother, stepped carefully through the doorway of the humble cabin. Her eyes, once cold and distant, now held a weight of regret and sorrow. "Miss Brennan," she began, her voice trembling but sincere, "I have come to apologize for my son's sins, for the pain he caused you, and for the years it took me to see the truth." Clara, standing firm yet vulnerable, met Margaret's gaze. The woman who had once been a symbol of the family that destroyed her life now offered a hand of peace. It was a moment heavy with history, with the power to heal old wounds. "I know the truth now," Margaret continued, revealing documents that detailed Charles's crimes, his attempts to cover them up, and the efforts to silence Clara. "He tried to ruin you, but you have shown strength and courage that none of us deserved." Tears welled in Clara's eyes, but they were tears of release. The release from a burden carried too long, the burden of false accusation and betrayal. Margaret reached into her bag and produced a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a string of pearls, delicate and luminous. "These belong to my mother," Margaret explained. "They were meant for my son's bride. Since that can never be, I want you to have them, as a symbol of forgiveness and acknowledgement of your worth." Clara accepted the pearls, feeling their cool weight like a balm to her soul. In that gesture lay acceptance, not just from a woman who represented the past she escaped, but from the world that had once turned its back on her. Outside, the town gathered to celebrate a new chapter. The same people who had once jeered and judged now stood in quiet support, witnessing the restoration of a woman wronged but not defeated. Ezra moved among them, his steady presence a reminder of the love and loyalty that had seen Clara through her darkest hours. Together, Clara and Ezra prepared for their wedding, a ceremony not born of obligation or debt, but of genuine love and partnership. The ivory silk of Clara's dress shimmered in the soft light of the cabin, her fingers tracing the delicate lace as she reflected on how far she had come. Standing on the porch, surrounded by the vast Nevada wilderness that had tested and shaped her, Clara felt a deep peace. The past had not disappeared. It lingered like a shadow, but she had chosen how to carry it forward, not as a chain, but as a testament to resilience and hope. As the sun set behind the mountains, casting the valley in hues of gold and purple, Clara understood that her story was not an end, but a beginning. A story of justice reclaimed, love found, and freedom won, not just from others, but from the fears and doubts that once held her prisoner. The morning sun rose gently over the Nevada Valley, casting warm golden light across the McKinnon Ranch. The air was crisp, carrying the sweet scent of pine and wildflowers that had begun to bloom with the promise of spring. Inside the humble cabin, Clara stood before a simple mirror, adjusting the ivory silk of her wedding dress. The delicate lace shimmered softly, reflecting the quiet joy blooming within her heart. This moment was unlike any she had ever imagined. Just months ago, she had been sold at auction, her worth measured only by debts and shadows. Now, she prepared to marry Ezra McKinnon, not out of obligation or debt, but from a deep, genuine love that had grown through hardship, trust, and healing. This union was a testament to the courage it takes to reclaim one's life and choose freedom on one's own terms. As she stepped outside, the wide expanse of the western landscape stretched endlessly before her. Rolling hills bathed in sunlight, cattle grazing peacefully, and pine trees swaying gently in the breeze. The vibrant colors of the valley were a stark contrast to the dusty streets of Calico Junction, where her journey had begun. Here, in this vast and rugged land, Clara found a new kind of beauty, one born from struggle and resilience. Ezra waited at the edge of the garden, his eyes filled with warmth and pride. His rough hands reached for hers, steady and sure, grounding her in the present. Their fingers intertwined, and in that simple touch lay a promise to face whatever came next together, as equals bound by love and respect. With the townsfolk gathered around, some familiar faces from the past, others newfound friends, the ceremony began. There was no grand preacher, no ornate chapel, only the sky above and the earth beneath, witnesses to the vows exchanged. Clara's voice was steady as she spoke words not of duty, but of choice. Ezra's reply echoed her own resolve. I choose you, not because of debts paid or favors owed, but because of the woman you are, the strength you carry, and the love you give. Clara's eyes glistened with tears, not from sorrow, but from the profound freedom of being truly seen and accepted. The past, with all its pain and injustice, had not vanished, but it no longer dictated her future. Instead, it was woven into the fabric of her story, a reminder of the battles fought and the life reclaimed. As the sun dipped below the mountains, casting a warm glow across the valley, Clara and Ezra stood together, facing a horizon filled with possibility. Their journey had been marked by hardship, but it was their courage and love that had shaped the path forward. In that moment, Clara understood the deepest truth of all. The past does not disappear. It travels with us. But it is the way we carry it, the choices we make, and the love we embrace that define who we truly are. If stories like this stir your soul, subscribe now, share it with a friend, and tell us your thoughts in the comments.